Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today, uh, we are going to cover these topics which are mentioned here. First of all, we will start from the installation and configuration of ESXi, and then we will also discuss the architecture of the ESXi host, and we will talk about some of the basic settings like how we can do the basic configuration, and we will discuss uh, how we can log into the ESXi host. And after that, we will do some basic settings of ESXi host, and that's all we are going to cover in today's session. If this is the first time you are attending a VMware session, so basically VMware is a company and vSphere is a product, and vSphere means that ESXi hypervisor and vCenter server. So today is uh, in today's session we are going to cover the ESXi installation and how to configure it, right? So it's a type 1 hypervisor which can directly be installed on the hardware. And once you install the hypervisor on the hardware, it lets you run virtual machines, right? So all these things we are going to cover in today's session. And I'm going to show you how you can build your own home lab. So this topic or this session will also help you how you can prepare a lab. So before we start the lab, let me give you an overview. Yep, I will send you the recording after the once it's uploaded to my YouTube channel. I will send you the link, Mr. VMware. Uh, Basically, uh, this topic, this is a part of my of ongoing training and progress training. We started VMware vSphere, install, configure, and manage version 8 training last week. So, and we already covered two modules, and this is basically module number 3. And module number 3 is all about installing and configuring ES6i, right? This is our module number 3 title, right? So we are going to learn that. So the previous lectures, the first lecture is already uploaded on my YouTube channel, and I also make the other two first module training publicly. So you can also watch it and you can also get the idea about what is vSphere and all these stuff, right? But let me give you an overview. So if you want to learn this technology, uh, the minimum requirements to learn this technology is you need to have 3 ESXi host, right? It means you need 3 separate hardware so that you can install hypervisor on top of that. You also need a domain controller, right? And I hope you guys are familiar with domain controller, a machine which has Active Directory domain services installed. It's a Microsoft product, Microsoft feature with Active Directory domain services. And I do have a lecture on YouTube available on the regarding Active Directory domain services installation and configuration. You can watch. If you don't have a domain controller, at least you should have a DNS server installed, right? So we also need that. We also need vCenter server. It's a management tool. It's a management piece, right? So vCenter server. Domain controller is basically a machine which has Active Directory domain services installed, Mr. Abdul Madan. So we also need that. And we also need shared storage, right? So this is also needed. Mishal, you can also add your input regarding shared storage. I mean, normally what people use, are they using VxRail, or I think most of the people, they are also still using the traditional storage, right? External storage like Dell, HPE and all these things. Okay, I think one of the student asked me. Let me share the link of the previous lecture as well, so at least you can download them. Mm, give me 1 second, guys. So I just shared a link in the chat box. Feel free to download the first two module lectures. So these are this is the requirement, and we also need a management PC. So basically, uh, in the production environment, let's say we have uh, three hardware, server hardware. Can you, Mr. Umair, can you post some of the server hardware model in the chat box, or you can name it.
Yeah, sure. So it basically depends.
Let's say
Um,
what's the server hardware you currently use, or
I am currently using a workstation from Dell, and the model or the part number from Dell is Dell T5810.
Mhm,
And there are a couple of more options, like, because I am doing these types of labs in on my personal computer in my home lab, so that is why
mhm.
I'm using the workstation. But if uh, but the guys can use the server hardware as well. But definitely for the server hardware, it is not a best practice to put the rack mount server on the top of table and do the labs. So the rack mount servers actually need the racks to put into it, and install and configure all of the stuff that is
Okay,
required,
got it.
right? So I would suggest, if anyone like want to implement these types of labs, they should go for workstation or a personal computer, even from Core i5 or Core i7 with processor Core i5 or Core i7.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Dell R730. Thank you, Farhad. Okay, Sajad. Okay, guys, let's continue the session first, and then I will give you some time for the question and answer. You can note down your question, and we can have a question and answer session after the session. But you can also leave your question in the chat box. And today I have Umair and Mishal, so they can also answer you in the chat. Feel free to answer them, guys. Okay, so basically, uh, let's say in this training, we need three hardware to learn this technology. We need three hardware. Let's say you have Dell PowerEdge server, you have HPE server, or you have Lenovo server. So whatever server hardware you have, right? And then we deploy vCenter server on one of the ESXi hosts so that we can manage multiple ESXi hosts from a single uh, dashboard, right? So vCenter server is basically a management tool, right? And definitely, if we have to run virtual machine, we are not going to store virtual machines data locally on each server, on each host. So definitely we need a shared storage as well, so that we can have a vMotion feature available. We can utilize we can use vMotion feature, or we can so that we can enable high availability feature and DRS feature and all these stuff. So I'm not going to uh, make it complex for you. Today I'm going to make it very easy. In today's lecture, we are going to learn how to install the ESXi hypervisor on top of the hardware. That is our objective of today's session. So definitely you need a hardware, right? So, and also we need to understand what are the minimum requirements of that hardware. So basically, if you have to install ESXi on top of the hardware, the minimum requirement is, let me write here. The first thing we need to understand the minimum uh, installation requirements is uh, we need at least 8 GB of memory, right? So we need 8 GB memory. This is just the installation requirement of the ESXi. We need two cores, physical two cores, right? And we need at least 1 Gbps of network adapter. We can have a 100 Mbps network adapter as well, but then vMotion feature is not gonna work for because vMotion feature required 250 Mbps of bandwidth for one vMotion process. And I think 32 GB uh, disk is enough, right? And enough for ESXi installation. But if you want to store virtual machine data, it depends on how much data you are going to store on the virtual machine, which application or databases are you are going to run on those virtual machines. So definitely, I cannot say the maximum requirement of the storage. So it's totally depend on the workload you will be running on those hosts, right? So uh, let me just show you. Let me, you can see here. If you are not familiar with the server hardware, you can visit Dell website, you can visit HPE website, and you can search for their server hardware's model and series and all these stuff. So these are basically different types of server hardware. So for the home lab, these requirements are enough. You can utilize them. But if you don't have a server hardware right now, so in this lecture, we are going to learn how we can build a lab on top of our laptop, right? So if you have to build your own lab, what you can do, uh, let's assume you have laptop, right? So you can see here, I do have a laptop. Let me just show you. I hope you are showing my screen, right? So this is one of my laptop, and if I click, if I show you my specifications, so my laptop has 16 GB of RAM, right? I have CPU, I have disk, I have Ethernet adapter. So what I can do on top of my laptop, I can install VMware Workstation, right? So let's say you have a laptop, right? So I have Windows 11 installed on my laptop. So let me also mention here. So I have Windows 11 installed, and on Windows 11, I'm going to install VMware Workstation. So VMware Workstation is basically a type 2 hypervisor which you can install on operating system. You don't need a bare metal hardware. You can install VMware Workstation on top of the operating system. So you can install it. And on top of the VMware Workstation, you can create a virtual machine, right? And uh, on that virtual machine, you can install ESXi hypervisor just to understand how you can install the product, right? So I hope it would make sense to you guys that you can consider this virtual machine as a bare metal hardware. Like let's assume that this is a hardware. We have purchased a hardware and we are going to install hypervisor on top of that. Uh, what I actually do normally, uh, if I have to make a lab for the vSphere training, I can normally, I don't know about Umair's lab, but uh, I used to have a lab. So I have a server hardware, and on top of that server hardware, I have installed ES6i hypervisor already, right? And on top of that, if I have to deliver a training to my student, so I would create a virtual machine on top of my ESXi host so that I can install ESXi like this. So let's say I'm going to deliver a session to my student and I need three ESXi hosts. So I would create virtual machine on top of the ESXi hypervisor, and this method is called nested virtualization. So you can also prepare your lab like this. One of my friend, uh, he has uh, these type of hardware until maybe uh, Omer, do you know the price of these product, these hardware?
Internet devices mostly vary from $300 to $500. It
Mm-hmm,
depends because they usually come with a processor of 13th or even from 14th generation Core i6, Core i5 or Core i7. So that makes these are the cost effective options, but mostly for the lab purpose or even for in the production purpose, these devices cannot be used
mm, yeah,
because these are not the stable devices.
got it. So
Yeah,
let's say you want to try these devices, you can purchase three devices, right? And you
yeah.
can build your lab of three ESXi host and you can perform all the tasks,
I
right?
also
So,
shared a link. I also shared a link from HP. Anyone can go just to register yourself with your personal email, and you can go. You will have the multiple options from HP for tower rack mount or even from micro servers.
mhm, got it. So let me post it in the chat box for the student.
I already did. Already did.
Okay, I think you only sent me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I
Oh
just
yes.
noticed that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can also guide the student that how they can work on this one. So make yourself ready. I mean, I will give you some time so that you can
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
show
I'm
them how
always
they
ready.
can prepare. So what does this site do? I mean, what is the purpose of this one?
This site is actually used for configuring the HP hardware
Mm-hmm,
based on the requirements. Even for like tower server or a rack mount server from 1U chassis to 2U chassis to 4U chassis. Like
mm-hmm,
from entry level servers to enterprise level servers.
mm-hmm. Got
There
it.
are some pre-configured options. You just need to select any pre-configured. I can share my screen and uh, like
Yep, I will give you
give
time.
the word.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So let's focus on this and I will give you some time. Thank you. Okay. So, uh, okay, before I start the lab, are you guys able to understand these scenarios? That what are we going to do in today's session? We are going to install ESXi hypervisor and we can do the installation piece. Okay, let me tell you an interesting thing. Uh, you know, uh, if you don't have uh, much resources available in your laptop, you can simply write VMware HL, right? And you can visit this link, this site. I'm going to share the uh, thing here, right? And once you click hands-on lab, right? Here you can click the catalog and you can write virtualization 101. This is the lab. Once you click on that, you will see this lab. So this is the home lab. So if you don't know how to work on this lab, on the right side, you can see the guideline. You can start it from here. What is virtualization and all these stuff. And the interesting thing is they will also show you how you can install hypervisor on top of the hardware. Like you can see the first time using hands-on labs, all these things. So you can go through it and see that this module will install the interactive simulation of ESXi and all these stuff, right? So let me just give you a quick overview. Start the interactive simulation. Once you click here, uh, it will guide you like how to install the product, right? See the installation piece. So in VMware HL, this is not the actual installation. This is just a simulation, but it can guide you uh, how you can install the product. You can write the password, right? And see, finally, we have installed the product. So this is how you can install it. But we are going to install ESXi hypervisor on our own lab. So I will show you. And even they will guide you how to log in and all these things and right. So see, they will guide you. So after my session, must visit this site, right? And write virtualization 101. If you don't have a VMware account, you can create an account, a free account, and you should be good to go. So this is how you can do that. So in our lab today, we are going to prepare our own this um, host, right? So let me start it. So as we learned here that we need 8 GB RAM, physical 2 cores, 1 GB PS, 32 GB, this one. So let's start with the lab. So the first thing you need to install VMware Workstation, right? This is the first thing. And after that, we are going to create a virtual machine, right? So create a virtual machine. You can select any option. So let's go with custom option. And here you can see the hardware compatibility. That's fine. Workstation 17.5 is 5. So that's we are good on that side. We are not going to install hypervisor right now. So always select this option if you are building a lab on your machine. And here we can select VMware ESXi. And I'm also showing ESXi 8 option here. Maybe in your VMware workstation, you would only see ESXi 7. So that's fine. You can still pick the version 7 hardware, but you can install ESXi 8 on top of that. But since I have updated my VMware workstation, so I can select VMware ESXi 8 and later, and I can give it a name. So I will give it a name ESXi 8 dash webinar so that I know that I have prepared this machine for that purpose. And how much number of processor and number of cores. So let me give you an overview. Maybe you guys are familiar with server hardware. Normally, when you purchase a server hardware, for example, let me write Dell PowerEdge server, right? Let's see this one. This is one of the Dell PowerEdge hardware, right? Let's assume this is the hardware uh, R940. Let me copy this image and let me paste it here, right? So this is the server hardware. For example, this server hardware has two sockets. Two sockets mean two processors, right? And 16 cores per socket. So how many cores we have total? We have 32 cores, physical 32 cores we have available on this server hardware, right? So here in the VMware workstation, you can see it says number of processor. So how many socket do you want on your hardware? So let's say we only want one processor and I need two cores on my hardware. Okay, this is so the total core will be two, but the processor will be one. So there will be only one socket and 2 cores per socket. So what is the difference between 2 socket and 1 core per socket? Who can explain it? If I select if I pick 2 processor and 1 core per socket, it's still the same. Let me give you an overview. Option 1, 2 socket with 1 core each and 1 socket with 2 cores, right? Any question? Can you explain it? What is the difference between these two? 2 cores, total 2 cores. Who can explain it?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Uh, yes, sir. Two cores per two core, one core per processor means every processor will get one core from each processor. That will be the balance load on each processor. But here is the two cores on one socket processor. It means we took two cores from the 16 core processor, so it means remaining is 14 cores over there. And here is we have 15 core each remaining. So they have just we got one core from each processor, but we got two cores.
Okay, so but for a home lab, I would recommend to always select one processor, right? The reason is, if you are practicing or if you are installing the ESXi host on a virtual machine just for home lab or practice or for learning purpose, always select one processor with 2 cores or one processor with 4 cores. The reason is because if you have to uh, put a license keys, so it means if you select 2 processor, it means there will be 2 licenses required for that single host. The ESXi license is basically per socket. So let's say you have a server hardware with two sockets in 16 core per socket. So you are going to purchase 2 licenses for that single ESXi host, for that single hardware. One more thing you should keep in mind that VMware has introduced another licensing model which is called vSphere Plus. It's a subscription based model. So moving forward, right? Maybe in 2024, maybe they uh, remove the perpetual licenses option and there will be a subscription based model per which is which basically purchase on per 16 core and something like that. So it's another story, right? So if we get some time some other time, inshallah we will discuss it. But for your study, especially for those participants who are already working in the production environment and if you who are doing projects, so you should also have a knowledge of vSphere Plus as well. So for now, we can select one processor, right, and 2 cores. So if you are following me or if you want to, if you are building your own lab, just configure your virtual machine like this. How many cores we can assign? It depends on the available uh, cores you have in your physical laptop, right? We will discuss that as well. How much RAM? For example, 8 GB RAM, right? In your case, you can assign 4 GB RAM for just installation purpose, but 8 GB is a good option. Uh, what are these 3 options? I do have a lecture on that, but if you want to access your hypervisor from the other physical machine, so you can go for bridge option. And uh, how much disk you want to attach? For example, I just need 40 GB of disk so that I can install hypervisor on top of that disk, and you can create a virtual machine like this. So as you can see, we have a machine ready which has 8 GB RAM, 2 cores, uh, 40 GB disk. It is connected to a bridge network so that I can It can be a part of my physical network, right? And what you can do if you want to add another disk, because I will also create some virtual machine on the local storage, local data store. So for your home lab, I would also recommend that you can edit your virtual machine and you can add another disk as well. And I will show you what I actually did. So let me add 100 GB of disk as well, right? And I have also configured the network portion, so I will select VMware. So let me uh, give you an overview. What I did actually, I created a virtual machine, right, with uh, how much RAM? With 8 GB of RAM, right, and two cores. It has 1 Gbps of NIC. It has disk 1, 40 GB, and it has disk 2, 100 GB. So this is our hardware on which we are going to install ESXi hypervisor. So you can assume that we purchase a server hardware with that specification and we are going to install hypervisor on top of that. So this is the story, right? So you can also build a virtual machine on top of your VMware workstation and you can consider this virtual machine as your physical hardware. One more thing you should keep in mind before installing the ESXi hypervisor, that the virtualization technology must be enabled on your hardware. And I believe all of you are familiar of BIOS, right? Let me give you an overview. VT enable from BIOS, right? So if you have Dell machine, if you have HPE machine, if you have Lenovo, you can enable VT technology, right? So you can find options something like that, Intel Virtual Technology or AMD. So you can enable that, right, from here. So must you should also uh, enable the VT technology from the BIOS as well. Another important thing is there is a website called VMware Compatibility Matrix. You should visit this site, right? Once you visit this site, you can put your server hardware or your laptop or your desktop information here. I believe you will only find your workstation and all these stuff. So you can also check your compatibility. What if you have this hardware, right, in the production environment? What if you have a Dell server and it can only support ESXi 7.0? So it means you cannot install ESXi 8 on top of this hardware. So then you need to inform your customer, right, for which you are installing the product. You should inform them that upgrade your hardware. But if this is your home lab, suppose there is a cheat available. I mean, you can try that cheat. It will not work all the time, but there is a command. This one, I'm going to share you the link. So someone posted a very informative article on the LinkedIn. So you can see here, allow unsupported CPU when installing and upgrading. So you can read this article and you will find a solution that how you can install um, the uh, ESXi 8, right, on a hardware which doesn't support ESXi 8. So you can try your luck, right? So even interestingly, the laptop which I have right now for the lab, it does not support ESXi 8. So we are also doing the same thing with our laptop as well. So we will apply that formula, which I just shared you the link, and we can install it. Uh, let's assume you have a customer and they have Dell servers and they want you to install ESXi 8 on their servers. So obviously you need ISO images. So the first thing you need to, you can how to download the product, right? Uh, let's say you can write ESXi 8.0 download, right? And you can download the product. It will redirect you to the VMware site. You can visit that site and you can download the ISO images of ESXi hypervisor. As you can see here, I already have downloaded, right? If I visit there, I can see ISO images and I have ESXi hypervisor ISO available. So I already downloaded this one, right? You can also download ESXi hypervisor ISO from the VMware side. But if your hardware is Dell, you don't need to download ISO image from the VMware side. You need to download Dell customized ESXi ISO image from Dell website. And who can tell me why we need to download the Dell customized ISO from the Dell website? Why not from VMware directly? Why can't we use the same generic VMware ISO image which is already available on the VMware side? Why not that one? Why specifically we are going to? Yep. Thank you, Farhad. So, guys, I did not read the other chat. Yep, that's good. That's good too. No, thank you for sharing your input. Yep. So the best practice is to download this one. Let's say you have uh, a Dell hardware, right? So you can write here like this. You can write Dell ESXi 8.0 customized ISO and you can download. You can see it will redirect you to the Dell website. You can write HPE ESXi custom image and it will redirect you to the HPE site. And then you can mention what version of which build you want to download. Let's say 8.0 update 2 for which series, right? Yep. Thank you, Umair. So you can download it. Let's say you want to download it. So you can download it, right? So this is also one of the action item or the important thing you need to keep in mind. So let's assume we already have ISO image available. So I can use this ISO image for now for my this virtual machine. So before I move forward, if you have any question, you can ask me. And in the meantime, I will take a look of the chat. I think people are chatting with each other. I can see Muazzam Muhammad. His question is, can we use 3 Dell Ultra Small form factor with 6th generation and a NAS for a shared storage? Yes, Umair already answered that. Thank you, Umair. So I think we are good for now. I have HPE third workstation. Is it perfect for the lab? How much RAM do you have, Haris? And I think uh, we are good now. So any question, guys, before we start the lab, before we start the installation of the ESXi? Anything you want to add, Mr. Mishal, Umair, and the other folks from the industry? Are we good? I think we are good because silence means yes. In our country, silence means yes. Okay, yes. Farhad just mentioned iDrake interface. So who can explain it? Who can unmute his mic and explain the iDRAC? Khalid,
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Sir, basically, iDRAC is a is basically the propriety of Dell computers, and it
Hmm.
is basically made for it's an integrated remote access controller, basically
Hmm.
to manage the servers remotely, or if you want, even on the side as well. So it's basically made for remote management of the server, installation of the operating system, upgrading of the BIOS and everything. So it is very good uh, way out from the Dell to do the remote installation. And every supplier have its
So
own, like
let me,
HP, they have their
yeah,
own.
so let me
Yeah.
elaborate this.
Yes, please.
Basically, every OEM, every manufacturer, and every brand has its own proprietary remote access software. So basically, these are the remote consoles for every OEM. Like in case of Dell, it is IDRAC, and in case of HP, it is ILO, and also in case of Lenovo, this is Xperity. So basically, for the client for the client machines like the workstations or the desktop computers that comes with the I series processors, when we need to upgrade anything and we need to verify whether it is upgraded or not, we need to shut down the computer, power it on, and go to the BIOS settings to verify our upgradations. But in the in enterprise machines or the server hardware, this is the remote tool that we use to upgrade or verify our hardware upgradations, right?
Got it. So, so let me uh, also share my own wording. It's the simple thing is, for example, Khalid is in UK now, and he wants me to install ESXi hypervisor on his server hardware. So I cannot visit UK just for installation purpose. So I can ask Khalid to give me access of that server. So iDirect is basically a console, right, which I can access through browser, I believe, and I can uh, install ESXi hypervisor from here, right? And I do have a lecture on my YouTube uh, where we displayed how to access a physical server remotely, right? And how to install ES6i8 on top of that. Yep. Thank you, Farhat, for reminding me. Any question, anything you want to add, guys, before we uh, start the installation? No question so far? Perfect.
Here's another addition in the iDRAC. Basically, recently Dell introduced uh, um, the open managed system solution also, which also is a small software can be installed and used in the managing the servers as well remotely.
Yeah, that is a part of Pro Deploy services, Dell Pro Deploy services.
Hmm, got it. Thank you, guys. So let's start the installation. So normally, uh, okay, what if you want to install ES6i on top of your physical machine? Let's say you have purchased a server, so you can download the ISO image. You can make a bootable USB using Rofus software or any other bootable USB maker software, and then you can attach that USB hard to an USB stick into the hardware, and you can install the ES6i hypervisor. One more thing I want to add here. Uh, Normally, let's say you have this hardware and you want to install Windows 10, and for example, you have 100 GB of disk, right? So let's say you have 100 GB disk and you want to install Windows 10. So normally what we do, we create partition, right? And then we format those partition in NTFS file system, and then uh, we assign a drive letter, for example, C, D, and E, and then we install operating system on drive C, and then we use D and E for the other data or other files, right? So this is the practice of this one. If you have a hardware having a disk, and when you want to install hypervisor on top of that, what will happen actually, the 100 GB disk will have a single partition called root directory, and the file system will be VMFS. So we do have a topic in module number 6, which is virtual machine file system. So we will discuss all these things in the upcoming lectures, but VMFS is a file system. So if you have, suppose, a Dell server having Windows 10 already installed and you want to install hypervisor directly, so you should keep in mind that the data stored on your disk will be deleted, right? Because for the ESXi installation, the hard disk will be repartitioned, right? So that will do the partition again, like it will create its own file system partition and all these stuff. So you should also keep this in mind. But if you are doing the labs just like me on the virtual machine, then you should be good, because every virtual machine has a virtual disk. So as you can see here, we will be using this virtual disk for the ESXi hypervisor installation, and then we will use this disk for the data store, so that we can store virtual machine data uh, on this data store. Another thing is, uh, on which devices we can install hypervisor. So you can install hypervisor on SSD as well, right? Normally the best practice is which one? The best practice is SSD. Uh, Let me just show you. Let me give you an overview. Let me make it red. So you can install it on the hard disk, right? You can install it on SSD. You can install it on SATA DOM. I don't know what is this thing. And who can explain it?
NVMe, NVMe hard drives,
Okay.
non-volatile
Uh,
memory express modules.
okay. And uh, we used to install ESXi 7 on USB stick as well, even on
USB
memory
or
card.
SD cards.
Yep.
Yeah,
You can even install hypervisor on the memory card as well, right? On SD card.
but I believe all the latest servers has turned off this feature, the SD card compatible options from servers. So you are no longer install the ESX servers on the SD cards running on the servers hardware,
Yep. Got it.
even
Uh,
from HP, Dell, or Lenovo.
Okay, I got a question from Mr. Sajad regarding my network adapter settings. So Sajad, I have configured my VMware workstation based on my own. So which is why I select custom. In your case, you can select bridge, right? But since recent today I was giving a session on router OS, a firewall session. So for that session, I configured my VMware workstation. So which is why my option is VMnet 0. So VMnet 0 is basically bridge, right? Okay, so let's start the installation. I know people cannot wait anymore. So once you start the installation, right, make sure to, I think I did not attach the ISO image yet. Yep, I need to attach the ISO image.
Sir, if you don't have USB connected or USB is not working, so how we connect the ISO then?
Okay, basically
No
this is something.
CD-ROM, yeah, no
Oh,
CD-ROM, no SSD.
okay, so I think through iDrag you can also upload the ISO images, if I'm not wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yep. Thank you
Yes,
guys.
you can, but what if you don't have access also? So only you have this, you can access the virtual machine and you want to create a new
No, no,
VM.
no. Are you talking about virtual machine? Or are you talking about the ESXi installation? Here
No,
we
no,
are
I'm
going.
talking. Ah, all right. So you here we are EXS. Yeah, right, right.
Okay,
So
yeah, yeah. We are
I'm
basically installing the hypervisor. So
right.
consider this virtual machine as your physical hardware, right?
Okay, okay, sir. Sorry.
Yeah, so you can attach the ISO image, right? So as we already downloaded the ISO image, you can see here. So I will attach this ISO image, right? And we can start installing the product. And make sure to press Shift O. I already uh, shared this thing. Gulshan, sorry, Raja, is my voice not clear to you? Why I am writing this command? Who can explain me? Why this command? Because my this
Sir, in
hardware
order to
does
skip,
exactly my hardware does not support the latest version, so which is why I am using this one. So let's start the installation. So this is how you can install the hypervisor, right? So this is the installation step. Uh, have you installed the, who is that guy? I think Mishal. Michelle, have you ever experienced the other installation method like auto installation? Have you done any project like that?
Uh, I didn't get you. What kind of automation you are
I
expecting?
mean, let's say, what is the big deployment have you done so far? How many host deployment?
Deployment, we used to do max to max 5 hosts.
Hmm. And you
That's it.
you would install hypervisor one by one like this.
Yeah, yes, yes.
What
If
if
there,
you what if you got a
then
project and they ask you to install ESXi hypervisor on 20 host?
mhm.
So is there any option we have?
We do
No,
have an
we have.
option from Microsoft that is WDS server, but I don't know if we can use that WDS server to install the ESX host.
So this is an action item for you guys, for all of you, that you should search about that. That what if we have to deploy, we have to install ES6i hypervisor on uh, maximum host, like for example 20 and 30 ES6i. We need to ready. We need to make them ready, right? You have server hardware and all these stuff. So how we are going to do that, right? And still, if you can find some option right now, you can post it in the chat so that also the folks can know. So there must be an option available for such type of deployment. Okay,
sir, we can use vSphere auto deploy option.
can you share the link here in the chat box?
Mm, Yeah,
Yeah. Actually, the installation which I am doing right now, it's on the virtual machine. So which is why you are showing the mouse. This is by laptop mouse. Normally, when you are installing the product, you don't need a mouse. You just need a keyboard and a screen. And one more thing we missed here, and that is very important, that as per VMware recommendation, you should have minimum 4 1 Gbps or 10 Gbps of network adapter. A single network adapter is not a good practice, right? What if you have a server hardware like this one and you have a single physical adapter? So what if you have 30 virtual machine running here, right? And let's say this link is down. So it means that all of your clients and end user will, all the virtual machine connectivity will be lost, right? So this is not a good practice. So if you are going to purchase a hardware, so you should ask your vendor to have at least 4 physical network adapter. So if you want to do practice, right? So you don't need to worry about that. In the VMware workstation, you can attach more adapter like this. So let me just show you. For example, this is the virtual machine, right? You can simply edit your virtual machine settings and you can add network adapter 2, you can add network adapter 3, and you can add network adapter 4. And the good thing is you can add up to 10 network adapter, right? You can do that. And make sure that all the network adapter are connected to same switch. So in our case, VMnet 0, VMnet 0, you can attach them with different switches. That is another story. This is a part of module 5. But for now, if you are preparing your lab, you can attach 1, 2, 3, 4 physical adapter. For the ESXi host, it would be considered as physical adapters. So you can attach 4 adapter like this, right? So this is also uh, an important thing you should keep in mind that if you are preparing your own lab, attach 4 adapters, right? And that's it, right? Uh, this is the networking topic we are going to cover in module number 5 actually. So let's continue with the installation. And here you can see we are showing 2 disk here. Disk 1 is for ESXi installation and disk 2 we will be using for virtual machine data. So the first I will select 40 GB and you can select your keyboard layout. Uh, for the ESXi installation, there is by default there will be a root username. So you can set a password and that password will be used to access your ESXi host. You can also create other users, right? For example, you have an ESXi host, right? And you have attorney. So you can also uh, create user for your attorney and you can give them limited permissions. What if you have Active Directory domain services and you have domain users? You can also make your ESXi host member of domain and you can integrate Active Directory as identity service in your ESXi host and you can log in here. Uh, Mr. Nishamuddin just sent me a personal message that in lab scenario like this, I don't think adding more than one adapter will make it will utilize the maximum. Okay, you are right, Nisham, but actually in the future lab, we are going to add more adapter for the storage communication for vMotion. So which is why I am adding uh, more adapter, right? Because we need to in our upcoming labs we need to understand how to access the shared storage, how to configure vMotion. So which is why we are adding more adapter, right? And the good thing is if you are working on the VMware HL, let me show you where is my VMware HL window. I believe it is not this one, which is maybe this one. Yes, so I think I lost my lab. Let me log into my lab again. Okay, so I will show you here. This is the VMware HL, which we discussed earlier. So in the VMware HL, there is already vCenter deployed and everything is ready, right? You can just open a browser, right? It will guide you here like this. See, on the right side, you can get help and see the first thing they will ask you to click on the Firefox icon. Then the second thing they will tell you that click this bookmark, and then they will give you the username and password. So you can put the same username and password which is visible on the right side, and you can log into your host. Once you log into your host, you can go to networking portion, and here when you click physical next, you will be showing 4 uplinks. What are uplinks and all these stuff, we will discuss it. So we are basically making our own lab like this. uh, okay, I have a question from Mr. Zakaria. Basically, for to understand this whole training, the VMware vSphere training, as I mentioned earlier, you need minimum 3 ESXi host. Yes, thank you, Pichul. Pichul, you are posting a lot of pictures these days on LinkedIn, so I don't know what's the reason behind that.
Networking only.
Ah, that's good. I'm also planning to 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 start posting my pictures on LinkedIn just like I post on my Instagram.
No, no, this is not the same. You cannot
Yeah.
just put pictures. So you need to talk about a specific topic. So, and then you can illustrate with a picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. Finally, the installation portion is done. Once the installation is done, you can click reboot, and uh, that's how. Uh, One more thing you should keep in mind that once you install the hypervisor, you can unmount the ISO image like this, as mentioned. So you can disconnect your ISO image as well. Let's say if you are doing the installation on the physical machine, physical server, so maybe you are using the USB stick, you can remove the USB stick because we don't need it, right? If this is on your own home lab installation, you can unmount the ISO image. So the installation is almost done. Once the installation is done, the second thing is which one? That is navigate the direct console user interface, the DCUI. So let me draw another diagram, or maybe I can copy one of this. Let me copy this one, right? So finally, this is one of our host, right? And this host is connected to a physical switch, let's assume, and it has one, two, three, and four physical adapter. And I have a laptop. This, let's consider this is my laptop, which is also connected to this network. And I have, let's say, your home Wi-Fi device, for example, my DSL modem, right, which has the internet access right here, and the LAN IP address is in my network 20.1 is the gateway, and I do have DHCP enabled, right? Um, so this is my network, and my management PC is IP address is, let's say, this one. So there will be an IP address automatically assigned to this host, right? From the DHCP. But we need to make it static, and we need to put our own host name and all these stuff. So for the basic configuration, we need to do some settings or do some changes. So direct console user interface is the first thing you will be interacting to the host, right? After the installation. Uh, Zakaria, I'm not getting your question. That is it possible with two servers? So I'm not getting what are you asking, but I will continue with the lab and you can put that. And see here, as you can see here, we our host has this IP address assigned from the DHCP available on our network. So it is 192.20.148. So if I write this IP address in the browser, right? This IP is assigned from the DHCP server. So the default IP address is which one? It is 148. So what I can do, I can simply open a browser, right? And I can write HTTP is 192.20.148, and I can log into my host like this. But this IP address is assigned from the DHCP server. So the best practice is to make this IP address static. So at least if the next day, if I open my host or if I powered on my host, I should have a static IP address. So let's do the basic configuration. Once you install the hypervisor, right, this black and yellow screen is basically the DCUI, direct console user interface. To customize this configuration, you should press F2 and put the password. So we will give the password which we specified, right? And you can change the password, right? If you want to change it, when you click configure management, right? Uh, from the network adapter portion, right? If I click enter, I can see only one physical adapter is connected. So I can add another one. I can add another one. I can add another one. So I can attach all the four uplinks. So I'm not going to do that. This is the topic which we are going to learn in module number 5. So I will leave it as it is, right? Okay. VLAN. If you have VLAN specified, so definitely you are going to set that as well. IP version 4 configuration. I can see by default the dynamic option is selected. So we have 148 IP assigned. I can simply make it static by selecting this option, and I can even change the IP address. I can change the subnet mask if there is subnetting, and I can also specify the gateway if this one is not the correct gateway. You can do that. If you don't need IP version 6, you can disable it. If you have a DNS server in your environment, you can put that DNS server IP address, or you can use for the home lab, you can use 8.8. Even for the home lab, I would suggest to use your own uh, DNS entry, right? And you can give it a host name, for example, ESXi 148. So this will be my host name, right? And you can go back and you can click yes. Since not all the settings required uh, a restart, but since we disable IP version 6, which is why the server is restarted, right? The host is restarted. So once you are done with the basic configuration, right, you don't need to do that. You can simply open a browser and you can access it. So let me show you here. Once the installation, the DCUI configuration is done, right, you can open a browser here on the client side, open internet browser and type HTTPS, your host IP address or fully qualified domain name. Yep, Sajad, you are right. When I started learning this technology back in 2014, right? So it was ESXi 5.5, and we used to install a vSphere client software 5.5. We used to install this software on our laptop to access our ESXi host. But now this is just a history. You can directly access your host through browser, and this interface is called VMware host client. Right?
I'm still using, sir, not history.
Really?
Yes.
Which version of ESXi host do you have, Khalid?
I have
That
one
is
my external hosting, which is on cloud, and that is 5.0.
okay.
So
That's
I connect,
interesting.
yeah, I connect this through there. So basically, it is our purchase server on the cloud
Mhm.
operator. So that's why. So now I'm going to change that machine. Basically, the machine is very old. I cannot upgrade to
Got it.
maximum can go to 5.5.
You need
So
Oscar reward.
one more question, sir. In
Uh-huh.
DCU, can you shut down the VMs through DCU? No.
I think there is no option available here. It's a good question, but I don't see any option here. But maybe
There should be an option how to shut down VMs. There should be because sometimes.
uh, I think there is no option like that. But I think if you log into your host through SSH, maybe you can write something and you can do that.
Okay, okay, SSH. Okay, fine.
Yeah. Okay, so you don't need to do any setting, guys. Once you are done with the basic configuration, you can remove the keyboard, you can remove the uh, monitor, the display setting, and you can put that server on the rack and just connect the power and cables, and you can remotely access through browser from any device on the network like this, and you can put the information, and this is how you can access your host after installation. So this is the your our host which we just deployed. Uh, I when I started, Mr. Sajad, it was 5.5. So after 5.5, I think it was 6.0, 6.5, 6.7, 7.0, 8.0, and let's see what would be the next version. Like if you want to change the name of the ESXi host, you can change it, right? You can change it through DCUI from here, or you can even change the host name from here as well, right? So we will explain it. But first, let's understand this overview. Once you are done with the installation, right, and once you access your host, so you will see this interface. On the left side, we can see host, manage, monitor, virtual machine, storage, networking, and all these stuff. On the right side, you can see some of the monitoring option like how much utilization is, regarding the RAM utilization, regarding the CPU utilization and storage and all these stuff. Currently, we are showing two errors or warnings. The first message is no data stores have been configured on that host, on the host. And the second message we are getting is we are currently using ESXi in evaluation mode. This license will expire in 60 days. One more thing you should keep in mind that there is a free version of ESXi also available. So you can also uh, download a free version of ESXi and you will get a license key
अरे
and
बाबा
you
मैं
can
लफ्ज तो मैं
you can
समझ गई
install it, right?
काम कर
Okay, this is something also possible, but one more thing. Uh, if you have ESXi host with free version and you want to connect them with the vCenter server, then this is something not possible because you need to purchase license key for all the host and for the vCenter server as well. If you want to do practice or just for testing purpose, you can deploy vCenter server for 60 days and you can deploy ESXi server for 60 days like this. So we are good now. Uh, I know some people are thinking now that what we can do, we can skip vCenter server deployment. And if we have a small lab or a small environment, we can download a free version of ESXi and we can use it forever. Yes, this is something possible, but you will not be able to manage all the hosts from vCenter server, and that's fine. You can access each host one by one manually or from a separate dashboard or from a single separate vSphere host client. That is fine. But what if you want to you want to use vMotion feature, you want to use high availability feature. So all the features are only available when you are managing your environment from the vCenter server. So vCenter server is not only a management piece, it will also unlock different features based on your depends on your license you have, which type of license we have. So if you want to study about the licensing stuff, you can study about vSphere Essential Kit. You can study about vSphere Essential Plus Kit, right? We have vSphere standard licenses, we have vSphere standard, and we have vSphere Enterprise Plus option available. And now the new option is vSphere Plus. And just keep in mind that after some time, we will not discussing all the four options. And the only option we will be discussing with our client is vSphere Plus, right? So these are the different licensing model, and each license has its own features. So vSphere Enterprise Plus is the expensive one among these four because it has a vSphere DRS feature and vSphere distributed switch option also available, right? So this is one thing. So, okay, we can ignore the second message. You are currently using ESXi, that's fine. We can skip that. Give me 1 second, guys. I have a call. Okay, just ignore the second message for now, right? And we can take action on the first message. It says no data stores have been configured on the host. So when you click storage option, I don't see any data stores here. But if I click devices, I'm showing 3 devices. The first device is basically the DVD room. That's fine. We don't need that one. The second device we are showing is 100 GB capacity, right? And this is, let's say, disk number 2. And the other one is disk 1, which is 40 GB. So we also don't need this one because it has our ESXi installed. And the reason we are not showing this one because of the partition chain. So the ESXi 8 partition, there is a lecture on that, right? So I would recommend all of you to study the layout of this one. So this is the latest partition overview. So it's you can take a look of this document as well. I'm going to paste the link here, right? So that you can read this one. I'm not a good reader, so I want you to read this and take it. So which is why we are not showing the 40 GB disk. So let's add this 100 GB disk is data store. So you can click new data store and you can click create a new VMFS, which is a virtual machine file system. Once you click next, you can give it a name, local DS ESXi 148. Why I specifically mention local DS? Because in the future, in the upcoming lectures, we will be attaching shared storage or LUN logical unit number or NFS or NAS devices. So definitely we need to mention a specific name, right? Okay, Pitchwell is also not a good reader. Okay, so let's utilize all the partition. We have two options available, VMFS 5 and version 6. So this is also a topic of storage portion. So we can simply create this one. So now we are showing a data store. So if we have to create virtual machine just to test how to create VM, we can use this data store for the virtual machine is the storage, right? So we can store the virtual machine data on this data store. This is something we will discuss later in upcoming modules. Okay, when you click the manage option, right? Another important thing is NTP, right? For example, you have 3 hosts, right? And you have virtual machines running, you have vCenter server. So as per VMware recommendation, all the host time should be synced, right? It means that the time of each ESXi host should be same. And why? So one of the reason is there are some services, right, which need the time should be same on each host and all these stuff, right? So you should keep in mind that. So NTP server, for example, currently I'm in Pakistan. So what I will do, I will just write uh, here Pakistan NTP server address. And for example, do you know any NTP server? Let's say, I think asia.pool.ntp.org. Should I copy this one or what option we should copy? I forgot that. I think this one should be good. Or do I need to copy this whole
Yeah, I
thing?
think you need to take it with this U.
Yep. Okay. Got it. So you can copy the NTP server IP address. And maybe in your production environment, you have NTP server configured already. Have you configured NTP server by any chance, anyone? Your own NTP server?
Yep, I did.
Yes.
Okay. Which option you used, Omer and Pitchwell?
Microsoft, I
Okay.
configured it on server 2019, 2012 and 2016, I believe.
Mm,
Mhm.
yeah, most of the time I use my controller domain as NTP server, and
Yeah,
then I connect
exactly.
my controller to Microsoft. So I did
Got
Most
it.
local
of the times,
device use the domain controller, and the domain controller synchronize with Microsoft.
yeah, this is
Okay.
the best practice that usually we follow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can in upcoming labs we can do that. Umer, for our own class lab, so we can prepare it, such lab.
Perfect.
Yep, thank you. So I think I should also use 0.asia.pool.ntp.org. Let's do that. So for example, this is my NTP, right? So the first thing we need to, uh, you know, we can put the NTP server IP address here like this, the NTP information here, and I can click save, and I'm showing the NTP, right? But still the service is stopped. So by default, the NTP client service is stopped. So from the services tab, we need to enable NTP service. Do you see any? I think this one. So this is the service we need to start, right? So you can see here the NTPD service is running now. And if I go back to the time and setting, if I click refresh, I can see it's run. So I don't need to manually set the time on each host. I can put this NTP server IP address on each host and we should be good to go. So time is important, right? You need to keep in mind. Another thing we need to understand is, okay, I think I can expand the time, right? So I just expand the time of the lab. Okay. In the license portion, I can see it's evaluation mode and I'm showing all the features because in the evaluation license, we have all features available. But if this is your production environment, you would specifically see the license and maybe it would also show the license key and all these stuff. And you can also review this on the VMware HL side. Like you can see this is the VMware HL. This is not our lab. This is the VMware Belton lab, right? So let's say by any chance you are not able to deploy your own hypervisor, you can perform task here, right? So I just logged into my host, right? Okay, I think I put the wrong password and that's it. Okay, so this is my host, right, which is in the VMware HL. By default, this host is in maintenance mode. So I can right click and I can exit maintenance mode. So my host is now okay, right? And if I go to manage setting, right, I'm showing vSphere 8 Enterprise Plus. I know some people are noticing this license key so that they can copy and put that license key on their own home lab, but it's not gonna work. It's just designed for this VMware HL, so bad news for you people. Okay, when you click system and when you click time and date, here they have their own NTP server. So see, that is also fine. Another important thing we need to understand that let's discuss the security and user options. When you click security and user option, right, on the second option, authentication, this host is not a member of domain. So let's do this lab as well, that how to make this ESXi host member of domain. So if you have your own domain controller, the first thing you need to create a DNS record on your domain. So I think we do have a domain controller available. Let me see if that machine is ready so that I can give you an overview. So for example, I have a domain controller available on my lab. Uh, okay, for those students, if you don't have any idea regarding Active Directory domain services, you can skip this option for now, right? But this is something very important. we need to understand how we can make our ESXi host member of domain. So you can do it from here, join domain, and you can put the domain information. So the home lab domain is carp.vmbeans.com, and the administrator at the rate carp.vmbeans.com, and password, and you can make your host member of domain. You can do that. Yeah. I think we are getting some error, but in your lab it should not be like that. So our domain controller is which one? vclass.local. Okay, uh, let me pause for a while. So what we did so far in today's lecture, we installed the ESXi hypervisor on top of the hardware, right? And then we did some basic configuration, and then we access our host. And the other thing we need to do is, this is the topic which we will be discussing in upcoming topics, like if you want to create virtual machines, how you can create it, right? And if you click the networking portion, here we can see the standard switch, and we can see the physical adapter, and I'm showing only one adapter, but since we have 4 physical adapter available, so I can click this button or I can click this button and I can add uplink, and now we have another adapter also connected. So we have now 2 physical adapter connected to the same standard switch, and we can attach 4 more. We can create another switch, we can create virtual machine port group, we can create VM kernel port group. So that was the agenda of today's topic. So I hope you have learned something today, that how to install the ESXi hypervisor and how to uh, configure it and how to access it and all these stuff. So that was our lab today. I'm going to pause the recording for now. I'm going to stop the recording actually.